Hi, my name is Michael, and in this video, I'll talk about how I set goals. First, I'll talk about 3 general considerations I make when setting goals. Then, I'll talk about a specific process for setting goals, which consists of 4 steps. First, I'll talk about the 3 general considerations for goal setting. The first of these considerations has to do with when I set goals. If I'm setting goals for a specific period of time, such as summer break from college, I found it very helpful to set goals before that period of time begins. In recent semesters of college and recent breaks, I've noticed that when I have goals going into that period of time, it seems to be helpful. On the other hand, if I try to figure out my goals during that period of time, it doesn't tend to go as well. For instance, last winter break, I spent at least a week just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I wrote out a long document just considering lots of different things, and I don't feel like that was very helpful. Because of this, I decided to set my goals for this summer before the period of time began, and so far it's been really helpful because I've been able to start working on things right away. I find it difficult to figure out what I want to do and get things done at the same time, and this was a good way to mitigate that. The second general consideration has to do with focus. I used to think of focus as something along the lines of concentration or hard work or effort, but now I think of focus as being defined by the number of things you do, and if someone does less things, they're more focused. This applies to goal setting because having fewer goals makes it more likely that I'll be able to make those things happen. A few summers ago, I remember I had around 8 different goals, and I wasn't able to make much progress on any of them, but if I had only a few goals, I would have been able to make more progress on those things specifically. But I don't think focus should just be defined by the number of things someone does. Another consideration is how someone's time is distributed between different goals. For instance, if someone has 4 goals and they spend 25% of their time on each of them, compared to if someone else has 4 goals and they spend most of their time on one and just a little bit of time on the others, the second person would be much more focused. To apply this to goal setting, ways of being more focused include deciding not to do certain things, as well as deciding for certain things to take up a lower portion of your time. Something to consider here is that even if you know you want to do something, it doesn't necessarily need to be part of your goals. For instance, I know that this summer I want to plan my courses for next semester, but it's not something major that I'll be doing, so I just consider that to be logistics and didn't incorporate it into my main goals. The third general consideration that I like to make is simplicity. I feel like in order to make my goals happen, I need to be able to remember them and recall them easily. So I want to make them as simple as possible. I want to make them clear, and I want to make them concise so they could fit on a small piece of paper. To summarize, the 3 general considerations I make when setting goals are setting goals before the period of time they apply to begins, focus, and simplicity. Now I'll move on to talking about a specific 4-step process for goal setting. With this, I want to clarify that I use the 4 steps I'm about to talk about when I've set goals in recent times, but it wasn't until now that I put them in this specific order. The first step is choosing a period of time. For example, let's say someone's beginning school or beginning a semester of school, they could set a goal for the semester. The next step is to set a general vision for what you want to happen in that time. So for instance, let's say the person wants to do well on exams and get better grades than they have in the past. The next step is to figure out a specific behavior that will allow you to do this. So for the person in the example, this would mean studying. The final step is to figure out a way to measure the extent to which you're doing this behavior and making progress. For the person in the example, this can mean tracking how long they study each week. To summarize, the first step is choosing a period of time. The second step is choosing a general vision of what you want to happen in that time. The third step is figuring out a specific behavior that will get you there. And the fourth step is figuring out a way to measure that behavior, or to measure the extent to which you're doing that behavior. Now I'll give another example of this with a goal that I have for this summer. The period of time is summer break. The general vision of what I want to happen is for me to become more knowledgeable about human health. The behavior that will allow me to do this is studying, specifically studying from either a personal training book or from course material from an anatomy and physiology class. And the way I'll measure my progress is by tracking how long I spend studying these specific things each week and keeping track of how long I spend studying these things each week. The final thing I want to do in this video is to go back to the general consideration of focus, which I talked about at the beginning, and give an example of how it can be applied. This summer, I have 4 main goals, but I decided to focus most of my time on studying and less of my time on each of the other 3 goals. In this way, I'm more focused than if I were to spend 25% of my time across each of the 4 goals. Overall, the things I shared in this video seem to have been helpful for being able to intentionally direct my behaviors this summer. I'd like to continue doing these things when setting goals in the future.